Hey everyone, thank you so much for being here. Before we kick off this week's episode, just a quick ask. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell to make sure that you never miss an episode, never miss out on any of the strategies and tactics that we're sharing to help you continue charting your own path to freedom. And if you'd like to go deeper with any of this, we've launched a free Facebook group, which you can join at pathtofreedom.com/group. And we've linked that in the show notes to make it easy for you to find. All right. Thank you again for being here. Let's drop in to the episode. All right. And we are live. Hey, what's up, everyone? And welcome back to the Path to Freedom podcast. Today, I'm joined by Chris Stonis. Chris is the founder and CEO of Elite Window Cleaning and Sparkle Squad, window cleaning and power washing. This is, as Chris will put it, a brand that's had an overnight success story, but many, many years in the making to get to the point of having that overnight success. So anyways, Chris, thanks for being here, man. I'm really excited to have you on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to this. It's a great day.
Yeah. So there's so many things. I started this podcast like 4.5 years ago, and there's so many things I like about doing the podcast. And obviously my line of work is all centered around franchise ownership. You're a franchisor. But I've had a lot of guests on the podcast that are not in the franchising business. They just have cool entrepreneurial stories and good advice for aspiring entrepreneurs. But one of my favorite things doing the podcast has always been spotlighting business opportunities like yours, because they're such good opportunities for the right person, but they get overlooked far too often, right? Window washing, power washing, like 90% of the candidates that I work with that want to explore franchise ownership, if I just right off the bat, without doing any education or really working through a process with them, if I just said, hey, have you ever considered getting into the window washing business or the power washing business, they would look at me like I'm crazy, right? But these businesses are, especially in the setting of a franchise, when they're structured the right way, when the systems, the processes, the support is there, they're some of the best, dollar for dollar ROI opportunities out there, and they just don't get nearly enough attention. So anyway, sorry for the long lead up, but I've enjoyed getting to know you a little bit, and I love the business that you've built. And you guys are doing some things very differently in the window washing and power business, which we'll get into. So anyways, just wanted to kind of set the stage. I'm pumped for the conversation and excited for the audience to hear from you.
Yeah, it's that's a great intro, because it is such an old and stable industry, yet has never been sexy or attractive from the outside in. And
Yep.
frankly, for myself, I got into this industry during like a really big transitionary period in my life. And never when I started did I think this was going to bring the opportunities to my life that it has, or that I would be able to just open Pandora's box in the window cleaning industry. Like how does that come to be? And it's kind of gives us a little bit of arbitrage, because it's been so overlooked for so long that,
Yep.
We got to the position that we're in today by simply like trying harder for longer and caring more about this industry than anyone really had. So like, it's cool to see, the overnight success, as you said, but we've been in the oven for 12 years baking this cake,
Right.
and really refined it before we made the leap into Sparkle Squad. So it's there's a lot of intentionality behind everything we do, and I'm sure we'll get into a ton of it on the pod here.
Yeah, for sure. And like, you guys really are, from my perspective, kind of, revolutionizing an industry that's been around forever, right? I mean, we've had
Mhm.
Windows for a very long time. So
Mhm.
essentially, as long as there's been Windows, there's been a need to have those windows cleaned. Power washing's obviously not new, but
Mhm.
to your point, you see this a lot of times in these service businesses or service industries where there's not a whole lot of innovation. You guys are doing it from a process standpoint, in terms of the types of equipment that you're using, making it more efficient for, your workers, which leads to the job being done quicker, which is good for the client, but it's also good for the business owner, the franchise owner, and we'll kind of get into how that impacts the unit economics a little bit. But you're also doing it from a branding and a marketing standpoint.
Mhm.
You know, from what I can see, you guys are operating as a company in 2024, right? Like you've
Mhm.
got a fresh look. You don't take yourselves too seriously, but at the same time, as you've mentioned, you are very serious and very intentional about, you know, what your mission and your purpose is as a business. But like for me as a consultant, it's very refreshing to see, you know, you guys leveraging marketing and social media and things that are, you know, current to the times instead of,
Mhm.
you know, 10, 15 years behind the times. Hey everyone, we'll get right back to the episode, but I wanted to quickly share a free resource with you. If you're curious about franchise ownership and want to learn more about how countless people, including myself, have leveraged franchising as a way to create more freedom for themselves and to take control of their livelihood, I've put together an ebook. It's called Franchise Wealth Creation, and it's the perfect starting point for anyone that's just curious to learn more about this whole franchise thing and how I've helped hundreds of other people navigate all the steps involved in understanding and researching franchising. So click the link in the show notes, fill out a short form. I'll send you the ebook. I think it's a great starting point if you're curious at all about learning more about franchising. All right, let's get back to the episode.
Yeah, it was that was really evolutionary. To kind of tell the story, I'm going to go way, way, way back, and then I'm going to walk into why that kind of became the brand identity
Yeah,
and
please
how
do.
we got here. Was my previous career was actually in the music industry, so it was all about, you know, I was behind the scenes working in recording studios, but it was all about everything we do was angled towards public perception. And when we're in the studio, like, yes, we're recording this, but like, how are we recording this today because of what's going on in today's market? So there's a lot of positioning in music that happens kind of before record gets even pressed that most
Okay.
people don't realize. So it was kind
Yeah.
of in my DNA. But I hit a ceiling in that career where I was in my early 20s, and I was I was engineering in one of the best studios in the world. I was working with Grammy winning artists, and I couldn't picture myself doing the same thing for the rest of my life, even though I loved it. Even though I
Yeah.
loved it in the moment, I was like, geez, like, this is it. Like, I'd worked so hard for it that I'd lost sight of, you know, what the end goal actually was. And I reached it so early. I was done
Yeah.
climbing. I was done building. And I walked away from a career that, you know, most people would think that they would, you know, die to get into.
Sure.
And that's when window cleaning kind of fell in my lap. I was, you know, I technically was unemployed for one day. I left the studio. I was walking home through downtown Vancouver, clearing my head, saw a high rise window cleaner, and I was like, dude, that is the exact opposite of a dark recording studio. That guy has it
Yeah, you
made.
can say
You
that
know?
again. Total
And when
opposite.
he got to the ground, I started talking to him, and the guy loved his job. He'd been doing it for a long time. He owned the company, and he hired me. And right away, I loved
Really?
the
Did
job.
he
Yeah,
hire you on the spot on the street there, or were there
yeah.
like
He's
follow-up
like,
conversations?
no, this was, you know, this was early 2000s, so we didn't have the, you know, Indeed and the litmus tests of job. He was like, yeah, sure, you seem like a nice guy. Come
He's
come
like,
by tomorrow.
anybody that's this curious about window washing, I like my odds here. I'll give you a
Yeah,
job.
and right away, like, the the scope of the magnitude of the industry hit me right away. I knew I needed something next, and I don't want to, you know, allude to the fact that I jumped into this on day one, like, with the whole grand vision rolled out in front of me.
Sure,
But
sure.
the magnitude of the industry was massive. Like, it just, everywhere I looked, there was windows.
Mhm.
And number two was I loved the work. So what that told me was I could build a team of people that would love their job. And that was
Yeah,
when the entrepreneurship spark started turning in me. Was,
okay.
okay, this job is great and I love it. Therefore, if I do it in the same way that I'm learning how to do
Mhm.
it, I can build a workforce who are culturally aligned and want to come to work every day. And that's really been, you know, I'm tying it all the way back to the social media here, but all through the evolution of from day one talking to Dave McDonald in downtown Vancouver to having an international franchise system coast to coast in Canada and the US. It's always been this like opportunity to just do something different and maybe like better than we did yesterday and maybe
Yeah.
give back to the industry. And we triangulate that around our people. Like you are in any home service business, it is my belief that you are only as good as your worst technician.
Yeah.
Therefore, you need to make sure that your people love their job. They feel aligned with the mission of the company. And you know, I say these things sometimes to my friends, and they look at me like I have two heads because they're like, "What do you mean window cleaners aligned with the mission of the company or like understanding the core values of the company?" I'm like, in home services, it's more important than any other industry because every single day, every single client, that is your future.
Yeah.
How you support that client, you know, what you give to them in a customer service aptitude. And so what you see on social media, I always take the long way around back to the questions.
I
I
love
do
it.
apologize,
No,
but
don't apologize. I love it.
what you see on social media, that kind of lighthearted, fun nature, that's just who we are because that's who our technicians are and they are our business. So we want to be modern because really like your workforce in this industry is Gen Z
Yeah.
and
Yeah. I imagine.
they want to have an outward projection of their job. And so our technicians deliver a lot of the amazing content that we're sharing because they want to share this cool job that they're doing. And that's kind of how we got to that. It really is in our DNA. It is not like clever branding slapped onto a franchise system. It is
Right.
kind of
It's
who we
really
are.
just a representation of who you are and the culture that you've created and you know now the culture of this much larger organization. And you know, I think people want to feel like they're a part of something, that they're a part of something big. I mean, when you were talking about your career in the music industry, it resonated with me a little bit when you talked about hitting a ceiling and hitting that ceiling very early on. I had, you know, numerous jobs prior to getting into owning our own businesses where I remember feeling the same. The job was good, the money was pretty good. You know, several years prior to that, if you'd have told me, hey, you're going to be in this position, I would have been thrilled, right? But you get
Right.
there, and for me, any sort of a ceiling that I've
Mhm.
had, you know, working for a company, that's been a very uncomfortable feeling for me. And I think, you know, not everyone maybe, but the types of employees that you would want to attract as a business owner, they're going to probably feel the same way. They want to feel like they're a part of something bigger. They're more than just a cog in the machine. And
Mhm.
that, you know, if they continue to work hard and prove themselves, there's going to be, you know, a pathway for them to keep growing with the organization.
Yeah, man, it's
Um,
so important. Like when you look around our executive leadership team, every single person in that team came up through the ranks in some fashion. There is
I
not a
love that.
single transplant in this whole organization because it's like the people that rise, like I am of the belief if you give people more opportunity than they're capable of today, they grow into it. And it's that growth that feels good. And it's
Oh
like they're
yeah,
not just growing into a job, they're proving to themselves that they're capable of doing something bigger than they believed previous. And it's created a really strong support structure here at Elite and Sparkle Squad because the people that are, you know, our franchise business coaches, our call center managers, they've been through the same steps and pain that our franchise owners are going through every day. So we built this culture of everybody laddered up. And so when a new owner joins, it's like everybody's reaching down just to get them up that next step. And like it's very much like we get to climb with owners. Like we all love the
yeah,
climb. So now it's like it's the best job. It's soul food for me. It's like without talk about not having a ceiling. Now I get to like, you know, work with, you know, so many owners that don't have ceilings and
yeah,
watch them kind of grow and build these big businesses. So yeah,
yeah. That's
it's
so
definitely
cool. And I mean, you something else you mentioned with, you know, any of these service businesses that are, you know, labor intensive, right? I mean, it's a service business because, you know, your product that you're selling is driven by someone on your team going out there and performing this service. So your people are so important. Like, you know, there's
Mhm.
there's retail businesses out there where the product is so good. I mean, think about like your iPhone, right? Like you walk into an
Yeah.
Apple store and the person working there could be a total prick,
Mhm.
no customer service, but like you're still going to buy an iPhone if you're there to buy an iPhone because the product's good and you know what you're going to get. It's totally different, with these service businesses. And, if you're a business owner and you're constantly dealing with employee turnover, or in a business like yours, people not showing up when they're supposed to, so now you're
Mhm.
having to reschedule jobs or you're running behind schedule. Every single day is going to be just a massive headache. And I'm sure there's, headaches in your business. I know there's challenges in the business, but if you have that culture intentionally created in your business, and with that culture you're attracting the right type of people that align with your culture, and you're helping them see the bigger picture and they feel like they're a part of this mission, you're going to eliminate so many headaches. And in doing that, the customer is going to have a better experience, and then that just has this cascading effect where they're going to refer you more, they're going to keep coming back to you, and it just, so many good things happen. I was listening to something the other day, and I don't remember what industry this guy was in, but he said he he had built this massive business that, compared to like most of his competitors, I mean, he just was the 800-pound gorilla.
Mhm.
And they were asking him, so what have you done different? He said, well, most of my competitors, they look at marketing and advertising as like the biggest thing that they can invest in to grow the business. And he said, that stuff's important. We do marketing and advertising too, but I've always looked at my people and hiring as the biggest investment that I can make. He
Yes,
said,
sir.
my other competitors, are constantly talking about can't find people to work. Nobody
Mhm.
wants to work. People are lazy. The job market sucks, like all these things. It's like, but that's my number one
Mhm.
investment. And we don't have those issues. And I thought that was an interesting way of thinking about it.
It is it's so well, it's such a good way to articulate um, what is important in really any business, but as a service business. And you said it, like, the narrative is the job market sucks. Gen Z are not motivated. They're not going to be a great workforce. The economy's in trouble because this new workforce doesn't know how to work. And the truth is, Gen Z are the most intelligent generation to ever enter the workforce. They've had an iPhone in their pocket since they were born. They can answer the world's questions at the drop of a hat. And so we looked at it. This was a few years ago when this started. This narrative, we kept hearing it. We were like, we just don't have this problem. The exact same thing as you just said. And so we started to really look deep into how we've created an environment where we don't have that problem. And it's, if you hire people and you think of the employment experience as it was 20 years ago, well, you're 20 years off the mark. So of
Yep.
course there's going to be a misalignment. But if you look at today, and you look at this workforce, people want autonomy. They want to know the rules of the road. They want to know how they can play the game and win. So we
Yep.
have structured across our whole system this environment where people come in, between 18 and 24 is kind of our most of our employees in this business. And we give them autonomy. We give them a schedule and we say, by the end of the day, that's what you need to complete. Here's the keys to the vehicle. Go do it in the way that you think is best. Number
Yeah.
two is we give them upside. They get a review. We give them upside. So what do? They give amazing customer service because they get upside for every review they generate.
Yep.
For revenue output, we give them upside. Like, we give them the ability to win at this game. We give them the ability to double their base rate every single day by doing things that align with our company's needs and their own personal needs. And it's just unlocked. Like, I'm telling you, this labor force for us has we you know it's changed everything. We don't need to worry about having job ads. We have people constantly trying to get in to these locations because their friends have told them, hey, I'm working at Sparkle Squad, or I'm working at Elite, I'm making this great money, I'm outside all day. It's not a, like, it's a, it's all carrot no stick. That I
Yeah.
guess that's the best way to put it. With this generation, it's like, how do we work together? Because that's what people want. They don't want
Yeah.
to just be told what to do. So
Yes,
yeah,
especially this younger generation, because I've seen this too, and I think a lot of people are totally off the mark. It's not that Gen Z and some of these younger people coming in the workforce are just lazy and don't want to work. There's some of that out there, but that's
Of
been in
course.
every generation, right? Like that's not new.
Mhm,
Um, they just don't want to work like their parents worked, right?
mhm,
The 40-hour week in the same office every day. And I mean, the internet has just opened everyone's eyes and as well as created so many new ways of generating income that's just not attractive and that's not what these younger workers are looking for. And so the fact that, you guys have understood that and adapted and given them a good opportunity that they're going to be happy with if they come in and hold up their end of it.
mhm.
Yeah, it's what more companies should be doing. But in the meantime, I'm sure you're thrilled that probably some of your competitors have not necessarily caught on to this yet. So
Yeah.
um, we'll
Another
we'll try not to put too big of a spotlight on what you guys are doing different.
Yeah, it's and we've enabled it through technology too. And that's the other part of this business that is just so different compared to status quo in the industry. The squeegee was patented in 1936. That is still the main
I
tool
love that
to,
you know
to
that.
do the job. Yeah. Yeah. Well, isn't that crazy though? Like there's no other
Yeah,
industry where we use a tool from the 1930s as the
30s.
primary. That is not just like we use it sometimes, like in the industry,
Damn,
it
that's a
is the
good point.
primary. And so, we call it like we took us a long time to figure it out, but we're able to do using carbon fiber poles and hyper purified water. We can clean up to 6 stories from the ground. And so we're not
From the
using
ground, so
lifts
no
from the
ladder.
ground, no ladders, we're not using lifts, ladders, ropes, and we're guaranteeing perfect results. With
Can you quickly, I'm sorry to cut you off, but can you
no,
explain why that's such a game changer in this business? Essentially being able to eliminate the need for ladders for, what did you say, 6 stories and below, you don't need a
yeah,
ladder for? Tell
yeah.
us, like, what are some of the benefits of that
Oh,
for
man.
you as the owner, for the employees, for the client?
So again, like it's reciprocal. Like everybody wins in this scenario because for the employees, well, you're not climbing up a 40-foot ladder to clean a 4-story window. Like that just is not a good place for someone to be.
No,
But
no.
also the equipment's lighter and easier to use. So again, back to people, our hiring pools widened. In Elite and Sparkle, we're about 50% frontline staff, male and female. Like
Oh, really?
no,
Yeah.
window cleaning companies do not have that stat because the
Yeah, I imagine.
equipment it's just a brawny industry.
Yeah.
And so it widened our hiring pool. So that's amazing from like finding the right people. But then for our customers, really we're a service business. So we sell calories in a lot of ways. And if somebody's got to climb up and down a 40-foot ladder all day long, they're spending a lot of calories. Therefore, the
Exhausting.
customer is being charged more because it's slower. So
Mm.
we get this speed advantage where we can scrub that window with the water fed pole, rinse it with the purified water, know that it's going to come up perfect. And our industry average is still climbing up their ladder and we're on to the next window. And
Yeah.
so the customer gets the advantage of we can now flat rate price. And like our flat
Mm.
rate pricing it's the no-brainer pricing. Our exterior standard home is $138. Like tell me anyone who's going to go to their garage, pull out a ladder, climb up and down around their house versus spending $138 to get their windows banged out.
Dude,
Like
I've got a guy coming next week to pressure wash our house. We've been building a new house. We're moving into it next week. By the time this podcast comes out, we'll have already been moved.
congrats.
And we've had the same guy that comes and power washes our house. He does a good job, but he's got kind of the traditional setup. It's a lot more than 138 bucks
Yeah.
that he's charging us. And I know you're talking about window cleaning, but I'm sure it's somewhat comparable. But that because I think in the customer's mind, right, with any sort of a home service and I know you guys do a lot of commercial work too, but the thought's always there. If you're charging based on the amount of time that it takes, the thought's always going to be there in the back of their mind, like,
Hmm.
hey, what's to keep this company from just taking their sweet ass time so that
Hmm.
they can charge me double?
Hmm.
So if you're able to
Well,
offer that flat rate, but it still works for
exactly.
you and you can, hit the margin that you would want to hit as the owner, I imagine that's just, I mean, it's just pricing transparency, and the
Well,
clients love that, I'm sure.
Amazon has changed the way we think about pricing. If you're
Mm,
not price forward, you're not winning
mm,
in a digital market. When I shop for something online, if
yeah,
I go to a website and I can't find pricing, I go and look for another company in the same vertical, and I keep searching till I find pricing. So
yeah,
we
that's a good
wanted to
point.
be price forward, and on that, that 138, that's much lower than our average job size because that's just your exterior windows. But there's a blue ocean customer that buys that, and
Yeah.
it takes our techs all in, set up, and tear down about 20 minutes. So our
Wow.
economics are preserved, and we can just bang out 138s all day, or we can
Sure.
have a $1,500 job where we're camped out all day. It doesn't. The composition matters less. What matters most is in the industry, we are available. People can price qualify themselves in before they pick up the phone.
Mm,
Our conversion rate in the we call it the jungle, our call center, it's off the charts. And every time a consultant or somebody comes in and they go, well, how is it possible that your conversion, like your IVR to sale is so high? And it's obvious. Nobody calls the window cleaner who doesn't want to buy window cleaning. So we
right.
provide a flat rate way,
Yeah.
transparent pricing, convert on that first call.
They've
But
already seen the price, gotten at least a sense of what it's going to be. So if they
yep,
still pick up the phone and call, they're
it's
they're
kind of
in.
a
They're
done
okay
deal.
with the
Yeah.
the cost at least, right? You're not gonna have a lot of people that are then only hearing the price and saying, "Oh
Mhm.
no, that's not in my budget," or I don't want to pay that much. That makes a lot of sense. So at the call center, I love the jungle. The jungle's good. So they're able to convert most of the incoming leads into jobs at that level without a franchise owner having to send someone out on site to do
Yeah.
an estimate of some sort.
That
Correct?
was a big thing. So when we started designing what we call the back office support system, we looked at what it took to grow a multi seven figure location, because we had our initial was a corporate store that was opened in 2012, and we looked at how long that took to get to multi seven figures, and then what we could have done to either alleviate pain or grow faster.
Okay.
And that's what our franchise model was built around, or our support model was real world experience. Like, this is a founder led franchise. I've seen every dollar from dollar one to where we are today flow through this business. And I have an understanding of what it felt like at those points.
Yeah.
So our number one was, how do we convert most residential work? The only thing that's excluded are your mega mansions that are glass cubed. You want to go out and lay eyes on those,
Sure.
but up to 4,000 square feet, your standard residential homes. How do we convert those four owners right in the call center in the jungle? And we actually take it all the way to the net where we schedule it. So they call in, customer calls in, we sell them the package based on the regional pricing, offer all the upsells, get it scheduled, confirm a date. And day in, day out, our franchise locations can focus on what matters most, which is growing their commercial footprint, making sure their teams are executing well. We put the points on the board, but they have to execute on those. So
Sure.
again, it comes back to, you're only as good in home services as your execution. And we've provided our owners this conversion mechanism that's happening upstream so they can really focus on staying on the gas, growing their capacity, growing their fleet, because there's no Coca-Cola in this industry. There's no
Yeah.
McDonald's. So our goal right now is to give our local owners as much bandwidth as possible to become market dominant. Because if you look around the United States, if we start being the largest in every major metropolis or every area that we're in, all of a sudden this network effect starts to happen, and we do get the opportunity to become the Coca-Cola of our industry. But we can only do that if we support owners to grow. We call them empire builders. We want big businesses in every market. We're not interested in, selling a job or an owner who wants this as a side hustle. It's market to market. Independents own window cleaning right
Yeah.
now. Market to market, it's some window cleaner that started a business in the 1980s or 1990s and just has this, tenure, I guess, working for them. And
Yeah.
so our goal is to go in with better systems, more efficient pricing, more efficient like profitability so we can grow faster. So
Mhm.
our owners need to be profitable in cash flow so that they can grow into the market size, right?
Yeah.
And we focus on it day in and day out. That is our biggest thing when an owner joins is, where do you want to take this business? And then we back work every step of the way annually. Here's the target you need to hit this year to get to your goal. You're telling us what your goal is, and then we're breaking it down into manageable chunks.
Yeah, I love that. And I want to talk more in a little bit about, kind of who your ideal franchise owner is, maybe, hear an example or two from you of some of your,
Mhm.
rock star franchisees. Before we do that, so one thing I wanted to kind of highlight, the fact that you have a call center is great, because I'm a big believer that in any of these home service businesses, especially if you're doing a lot of outbound marketing and advertising, if you're buying into a franchise, you better make sure that franchise has a call center and that they can execute, because otherwise it's just so difficult for a new business owner to manage the inbound leads. They're either doing it themselves or
Mhm.
they're hiring, training, managing someone to do it. And even if they get a really good person in that role, you still just have one person trying to
Yep.
capture all of your leads coming in. But then on top of that, the fact that you guys have these systems in place to actually convert leads to jobs and get them on the calendar
Mhm.
for the franchisee. For those of you listening, that's a game changer. The vast majority of these home service franchises out there are going to require some sort of an in-home consultation, in-home estimate, and that's going to rely on you having good salespeople that can convert. And so, like, I think you and I talked about this last time we chatted, but my wife and I have owned a Shelf Genie franchise for the last 6 years, and for us, it's been a really good business. And there's a lot of other franchisees that are very, very successful, but just like any franchise system out there, not all of the franchisees are as successful as some of the others. And the breakdown almost always, or the big difference between your top performing owners and everyone else, is either one of two things, or a combination of these two things. But it comes down to the in-home consultation, right? The
Mhm.
franchisees with the best businesses, they have great, we call them designers, but great salespeople.
Mhm.
And they have multiple of them,
Mhm.
right? Because a lot of times, like, the franchise owner will get really good at the sales, but then they can't translate that to
Yep.
other people and building out a team that can go out and get the same type of results. And so they just end up doing all the sales themselves, and they hit a ceiling pretty quickly. um, but that's more the normal model in most of these home services, and that's,
Yeah.
from an owner's perspective, two very different businesses, right? If you've got a
Mhm.
business that's not super reliant on a salesperson having to go out and convert, that opportunity, and an
Mhm.
opportunity is going to cost you money, right? If you
Mhm.
can't convert those opportunities at a high rate, it's tough to make any money. Hey everyone, we'll be right back to the episode, but one quick note, success doesn't happen in a vacuum. So if you'd like to learn more, you want to go deeper and interact with like-minded people, I'd love to have you join the free Path to Freedom Facebook group. You can join by going to pathtofreedom.com/group and become a part of the Path to Freedom community. All right, back to the episode.
Well, there's 2 points there that you said, and I think number one is you used the term vast majority, and it's really interesting if you look at how we got to where we are today, how our systems really don't align with the vast majority, and it's because we built this in an echo chamber. This
Mm,
franchise system cash flowed itself because the business was effective. So we didn't actually, in the initial days where we were building out this business, we didn't need to go to, raise outside capital from people who understood franchising in the early days. What we did is we built it based on what we thought would be best if we were a franchise owner, and there was nobody to say, hey Chris, scheduling the appointment for the franchise owner, that's unusual and maybe more labor intensive, are you sure? No one asked
yeah,
that because we just built it inside this echo chamber, and it was like, what is best for the business, what is best for the franchise owner.
not what is commonplace in franchising. How are
Precisely,
other
yeah.
franchises doing this?
And and it's amazing because we got to where we are today, and people look at it and go, "Oh, that's like unusual and really really cool." Lots of aspects of the business. How did you get to that? And it's like, it's just the best idea, isn't it? Like, isn't doesn't it make more sense to schedule the job when the customer wants to buy on the phone? And
Yeah.
everybody, like
Let's
sometimes
try to
it's
get in touch with them another time. Like, it's
so
kind of
will you
challenging to get in touch with people. Let's just, make this a little more challenging for ourselves and have to follow up with them again to get them scheduled.
and when we finally left that echo chamber, it was really interesting. It was
I bet.
in 2020, 2021. The cat had gotten out of the bag that this small company in Canada had built this incredible system, and they were franchising it, and the franchise owners were winning and they were happy. And we were a really small emerging system. And the acquisition offers just started rolling.
Yeah.
And we weren't interested. It got to the point where it was like a copy and paste, thank you, but no thank you email,
Mhm. Yeah.
because it was coming so frequently. And then a mutual friend said, "Listen, I know you're not interested, but you got to talk to this guy, Scott Frith. He's from this group called Happinest, who I knew because if you're in home services, you look up to Lawn Doctor,
Yeah.
55-year-old brand, like
Their legacy. Yeah.
yeah." And it was like, oh wow, like okay, I'll if you think that there's some alignment here, I'll take the call. And I got on the phone with Scott, and I'll never forget our very first call was scheduled for 15 minutes. It ended up going like 2 hours. We were wired up the same. And he said to me, he's like, "Chris, I love what you're doing because it aligns with how I think about franchising. There's only two things that matter. Franchisee franchisor relationships are number one, and unit economics are number two. If you have those two things, that is, you can withstand anything in the market. You can withstand any competition. You need relationships and strong economics." And I knew in that moment that I was open to a merger with like if it was Happiness and if the values were aligned. And it was kind of written in the stars. We A year later we were acquired by Happiness Brands to launch Sparkle Squad in the US. And that's when we left our echo chamber. We got to download 55 years of best practices from Lawn Doctor,
And then
but
merge it
layer it
with
over.
what you'd already built
Yeah,
in your own way.
exactly. We got to
Yeah.
layer their history on top of this unusual framework where if we had a gap, it was almost hand in glove every single time.
Yeah.
And, we were actually able to deliver a lot of new way of thinking about things back to
Oh, I
these
bet.
larger
Yeah. I'm
systems.
sure. I have no doubt about that. I'm a big fan of Happiness. I just had Eric Martin on the podcast not
Love
too
that
long
guy.
ago. Easy E.
Easy.
Yeah. But no, and I like that they're just not massive. I
Yep.
like that they're not like a portfolio of 20 something brands with,
Mhm.
a bunch of executives sitting in a boardroom making decisions that don't really have any
Mhm.
idea of like realistically what's happening in the field with their franchise owners, with their franchisees, people. I mean, Scott Frith, his dad started Lawn Doctor. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, he knows that business inside and out. And so then they've got Lawn Doctor, they've got Mosquito Hunters, they've got
Eco
Eco
Maids.
Maids,
Yeah.
and then Year Two Concepts.
Yeah, and that
Yeah.
and that's like they're as build, like as people, they are as genuine as they come. They are
Yeah.
as like you they've kept this smallness to like over like 1,000 franchise locations across brands, but it feels organic still. It doesn't feel rigid. There's something about the culture at Happiness that is why people are attracted to it. Is they didn't just go, today I'm going to buy up 20 brands, slap on a playbook, and hope for the best. They were
Yeah.
like
Oh, I've
very
I've
very
got some
intentional.
experience with that approach, and I'm not a fan as a
Yeah.
franchisee. So, and I want to make sure that the audience is clear, because I don't know that we really laid this out. So, you started in Canada,
Yep.
Elite Window Cleaning. What year did you start the business?
I started in 2012. The previous 6 years I had worked in the industry, just learning as much as I could. I traveled around. I went as far as Australia to just like wash windows and learn how it. So when I started in 2012,
I
I
love,
had this.
dude, you know, the year the squeegee was invented, and you went across the world to to
I
get
just
additional window cleaning training. I love it.
That was it. There was just knowledge to be gained. And, my wife jokes like, have squeegee will travel. Like, my wife has supported me from the glory days of hanging out, hobnobbing with famous musicians to traveling around while I figured out all the ins and outs of
Yeah, I bet she had
the window cleaning industry.
a few moments where she's like, "What?
Yeah. She
What?"
probably still does.
Uh,
But
well,
so I got all this knowledge, and then in 2012 I started Elite in my hometown, Kingston, Ontario, with a borrowed car, a bucket, and more information than anyone else in the industry had. And my goal from day one was just push the boundaries of the industry, push the ceiling, push the boundaries. And it really took me 3 years to get my head wrapped around the technology that I wanted to build. And then another, 3 years to build it to the point where it was like consistently performing. And then
mhm,
another 2 years to scale it into franchising. So this whole thing has been iterative from day one. But the sentiment, like if you could go back in time and talk to Chris Stonis on April 1st, 2012, when I started this business, it's the same vision. It is just to like be the best in this category that has ever been.
yeah,
It's not to beat somebody else or to be better than somebody else. It is literally to be the best that has ever been in this category. And I think we're well on our way. So
yeah.
started it in Canada, yeah, back in 2012. And
What year did you start franchising in Canada?
we started franchising Canada 2018.
Okay,
And
and at this
so
point, Canada's pretty much tapped out in terms of
we got
or
turf around Toronto. We got some turf in Vancouver, but we're starting to get there. We're kind of synonymous with the term like window cleaning across the country now, which is pretty cool. When
that
that
is,
happened, it was when candidates come from a new territory we're not in and they just know the brand before
yeah.
they know anything else. It kind of does your head in the first time that happens, but
Oh, I bet.
yeah,
And then you came, you partnered with Happinest and
yeah.
started franchising in the US in 23, 24.
We went live in January of this year
Yeah,
with
so the
Sparkle
beginning of
Squad. Yeah,
24,
yeah.
and then so it's Elite Window Cleaning in Canada, it's Sparkle Squad in the US. Was there
Mhm.
just a trademark
Tell you.
issue with Elite Window Cleaning in the US? We'll get right back to the episode in just a minute, but if you've been considering business ownership, if you're already a business owner looking to expand and you're curious about franchising, I'd love to connect with you, answer any initial questions that you have, talk about a specific franchise, and detail the exact process that I use and have taken hundreds of people through to help them understand franchise ownership, find the right franchise for them, and conduct the necessary due diligence. Click the link in the show notes if you'd like to schedule a free, no obligation strategy call. I look forward to talking with you. And now back to the episode.
Yes and no. The tech, like it's hard to trademark a name like that. We managed to do it in Canada, but honestly, it is the evolution. Like I made that name and logo in a hotel room and a layover in France on my way back from Australia. Like I didn't have the knowledge that I had today. So I'm always willing to change and evolve. And, the Sparkle Squad brand is so sound. It speaks to like our core values, our perfect windows, happy technicians, and delighted customers. You have those
Yeah.
three things.
It just wouldn't make sense to go back and try to rebrand Elite in Canada
Yeah,
because it's already so
exactly.
well established. Yeah, yeah. That
Yeah.
makes sense. Can you talk a little bit more about the technology and
Mhm.
if you can, I'm sure I can find some on your website, but I'd love for you to send me some pictures and videos of some of the tech
Yeah.
that you're using in the field because my editor can clip some of that into some of the promo videos that we do because I think
Cool.
it's more impactful if people can see it.
Yeah.
But you guys, if I understood correctly, you actually have some patents on some
So
of the
We don't have patents because with filtration, we found this out through a lot of investment in patent lawyers. With
Okay.
filtration, it's really hard to get a patent that can't just be worked around. So
Gotcha.
like our strategy is just to do it better and let that speak for itself. So the way the tech works is, first we had to understand the North American groundwater table, but the simple version of it is if you spray your windows with a hose just hooked up to your house and you scrub them and rinse them off, when they dry, there's going to be water spots all over them. And those spots aren't actually dirt from the window. What they are is they're the minerals from the
Yeah.
water as it evaporates. So we developed a filtration process that's four filters, and it takes your groundwater down to 0 parts per million. And so when that water evaporates off the glass, because it's at 0 parts per million, there's no minerals, therefore no water spots. So we're able to get
Mm.
crazy consistency, by just by filtering the water out. There's no chemicals involved. It is just ultra purified water. And we took systems that were doing it on the market and we just refined it with Sparkle Squad to the nth degree. Like the job pod is what we call our
Yeah.
vans. It is light years beyond anything in the industry right now. It is so advanced from like a technology of purification, from how we measure the water, and it's all designed around minutes and seconds equal dollars and cents in a home service business. So
100% it does. So and does that all include like what allows you to clean up to 6 stories without a
yeah,
ladder? That's all part of this job pod kind of
yeah,
technology that you figured out and
yeah.
kind of brought all together into one system.
That's right. Yeah. So we use carbon fiber telescopic poles to get the brushes up to 6 stories. And, the same principles apply whether the window's in front of your face or 6 stories high. There's a technique. It's not a magic wand, but it's a technique that's really teachable. That's the cool part about this is we can bring a technician in on day one. Kind of by the end of day one, they really understand. By the end of day two, they're doing a good job. And that's like such a good thing for a growth business. When you're adding fleet, you need to make sure
Yeah.
that you can train your technicians to do a good job. But I mean, it doesn't stop at window cleaning. We do window cleaning, power washing, and soft washing and gutter cleaning. And our goal was to be the technologically most advanced in each vertical. We won't enter a vertical if we're not at the cutting bleeding edge. So our gutter cleaning, we use a gas powered gutter vac that we import from the UK to do it from the ground with a camera. So you imagine climbing up and down ladders and digging out gutters
Well, you can just
or
move
walking.
so much faster. You just walk down the house
Exactly.
line instead of having to move the ladder
Yeah.
every 4 or 5 feet. I mean, is this stuff catching on with other companies?
The barrier entry is so high compared to what you could do.
'Cause it's just
So
more expensive to get the equipment and everything correctly.
yeah, so like your is your mom and pa gonna go buy a $200 ladder from Home Depot, strap it on their car, and clean gutters? Or are they gonna spend $10,000 to import a gas powered gutter vac from the
Yeah.
UK because our power grid can't provide enough CFM, so we have to switch to gas powered? Like there's so many barriers. So if somebody really wanted to, sure, they could get close, but you got to remember that if you include like before I started the company, I got 18 years of dedicated learning. Like we've been paying attention, and this didn't all happen at once. It was refinement and refinement and refinement year over year over year. And then for pressure washing, we're big on soft washing. So you're using surfactants to do most of the work. So where your guy pressure washes your house, if you're using a traditional pressure washer, you got about like maybe 10 inches of surface that you can actually clean. Where if you have the proper surfactants and you understand the chemistry, we can foam the whole house with this pink foam like a bubble bath in like 20 minutes for the whole house, and then let the surfactant do its work, rinse it off, and it looks just as good or better than a pressure washing. And we haven't had to hit it with that high pressure. We haven't had to take all that time. So again, minutes and seconds, dollars and cents,
Yeah.
customers win, and we are able to kind of dictate our margin because we are going to be a price leader in this space through our efficiencies.
Yeah, well, this is the type of business where your money's going to be made in efficiency, and so the more jobs you can complete in a day,
Hmm.
and it's not just doing it faster, it's doing as good, if not a better job,
Bingo.
than the other companies would, as if they came in and took longer to do the job.
Hmm.
And then it's scaling through adding vans,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So that's the recipe. And the other thing that I'd love to, because I know I've kept you for quite a while here, but I'd love for you to speak a little bit to the commercial side
Hmm.
of this too, because this is something I talk a lot about with candidates when we're talking about kind of their goals and aspirations, and
Hmm.
what do they really want to accomplish through business ownership. And if I've got the person that is more of an empire builder, as you put it, and wants the opportunity to build a really big business,
Hmm.
my mind immediately goes to, all right, we need something that has residential applications, yes,
Hmm.
but really the long term core business is going to be bigger commercial business, and I know
And
that's something that you guys have in spades.
yeah, you're so on point. You're so on point that I have to qualify that we didn't rehearse this. Like that, that's
I
it's
don't have a
it,
script I'm reading off of, I promise.
yeah, it's exactly like you really do have a good understanding. It is so residential is important because it cash flows daily.
Yep.
So when we launch our new owners, the first thing we're going to do is get on the gas in residential because that's going to cash flow to get them in front of their payroll, do all these things that you need to do from a cash flow perspective.
Easier to learn
It's
too, right?
easier to
It's
learn, it's
lower
easier to
stakes
train,
jobs.
and it's higher volume. So we're getting them going on that, but immediately we start working on the commercial vertical. So if you take a walk around any city, you'll see just by square footage there is more glass in the commercial space than in the residential space,
Yeah.
and there is far less competition. And that's actually where I started. So my initial,
Okay.
industry experience was in the commercial side. So we know how to price that university. The biggest project that we do system wide is it's a university, 70,000 panes of glass, takes a crew of six, almost 3 months to complete. And we have that
Wow.
knowledge to look at these massive projects, get that price dialed in, break it down. So over time, we coach day one, we start coaching on commercial, but that's a longer tent pole. It's a relationship game.
Yeah.
One key unlocks a lot of doors. So we have to make sure that we're coaching owners to understand it. That should start flowing, pretty quickly, but it's a longer build. So over the lifestyle cycle of the business, the composition switches from residential to commercial down here, then it evens out. When you're totally at market saturation, your commercial business line will be larger than your residential business line. That's kind of the
And I
scope of
imagine there's more predictability in the repeat business from your commercial accounts, because the homeowner, like, we have our power washing done and our window washing done, but it's like it's when we think about it, or it's like
right.
when the house gets so bad, you're like, oh damn, we gotta we
Yeah.
gotta call. It's not like I've got it planned out. Like, all right,
Yeah.
once a quarter, I've got to have the window washing company come out, and I've got that built into
Mhm.
my budget. I'm sure there's some people out there that are more organized than we are, but I don't imagine that's the norm for most homeowners. But that is with these. I mean, something like a university or a hospital
Mhm.
or an office
Mhm.
building or a business park.
Retirement homes,
Yeah, any of
condominiums.
that. They're gonna
Yeah.
have it budgeted. They
Yeah.
probably have someone,
Mhm.
in charge of, overseeing all of these different maintenance projects over the course
Mhm.
of the year. So if you do a good job for them, you probably have a sense, like, I mean,
Mhm.
it even came through when you were talking about this university job. You're like, the biggest project we do every year is this one
Mhm.
university. That's become predictable for you. Um, so yeah, I love the upside that, a big commercial uh application like this gives.
Yeah, and it's like it's a big differentiator for us. Most in our space don't go after that because it is big, it is complex, it is scary maybe,
Yeah.
but when we break it down into manageable systems, it's totally attainable. I want to circle back. I took a note or just wrote down the salesperson earlier,
Uh-huh.
because you said that the people that really come out of the gates the hottest are the people that bring a salesperson to the table. Well, the cool thing about The commercial we sell, right? Residential, we run centralized media. You're gonna do sales in residential too. I don't want to, give the
Sure.
impression like that's not the case. But in commercial, you're going to be selling and building those relationships as the owner, or we're going to encourage you to have a salesperson.
Yeah.
But the cool part about commercial window cleaning is it is this humongous industry, yet the buyer has a giant key ring on their belt and they're like a maintenance manager. So
Yeah.
you're not selling to like a board of directors,
Take them for beers and a burger and get to know them a little bit.
you're
Doesn't have to
selling
be
to a
anything.
total approachable person. And
Yeah, that's a good point.
yeah, it's a little different. And for like same for hospitals, for universities, it is, the bigger you go, the maybe more bureaucratic it gets to an
Yeah.
extent, but you're
Yeah.
always, when you're at those huge levels, you're still working with a maintenance manager or a physical plant services manager. So the sales like band-aid that we have to rip off for people maybe isn't like as stuck on as they fear when
Sure.
they set out.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. So, look, as we kind of wrap this up, I appreciate all the time, and we'll have to have you back for round two at some point because I know you guys are really just getting started with Sparkle Squad here in the U.S. Where are you at currently with Sparkle Squad in terms of number of franchise owners, number of territories in the U.S.?
Yeah, so right now we're 9 owners as of yesterday and 17 territories. So I look
Awesome,
up to
dude.
my right because every time we bring a new owner in, we have a champagne with the jungle and write their name and date on the bottle. So
I love it, man. It sounds like I need to make a trip up to Canada and hang out in the jungle for a little bit. It sounds like you guys are having a really good time, and it's clear
yeah.
that you love what you're doing. And it's a serious business in terms of the opportunity that it
Mhm.
provides. But you guys don't take yourselves too seriously. You're having a lot of fun, in the process, but you're
Mhm.
also just doing things very differently compared to kind of the standard in this industry, and it's a lot of fun to see. And from someone that sits in my seat, it's refreshing to see a young energetic brand like Sparkle Squad come onto the scene. And I'm definitely excited to see where you guys go from here. Where should we point people? Like I would encourage anyone listening to this, like go follow Sparkle Squad on social media
Mhm.
because they really are um, doing things like it's 2024, and that's
Yeah,
not the norm for.
Instagram, Facebook, like you'll find us. And if anyone listening, this appeals to, reach out to Wes because there's an opportunity here, and we're really looking for empire builders. If I could close with, or get a couple more minutes just to
Please,
talk
yeah,
about who we're looking for is we are, you know, nothing matters but motivation in entrepreneurship, and it is grit and vision. You need to be somebody who knows where they want to go, and even though they only see the horizon in this moment, know what chess moves they're going to make as their business grows. We want owners who want to be market dominant. They want to look at their territory and go, how do I become number one in my category?
yeah.
And that's what our foundation is right now, is hungry people who want to build a big business.
Well, and I'm glad you pointed that out, right? Because I think a lot of times, as I kind of, introduced you and teed up the conversation, I think a lot of times these types of businesses get overlooked is because
Mhm.
the empire builders out there, the aspiring empire builders, they're like, "Oh, what do I know about washing
Mhm.
windows? Like, I don't want to be a
Mhm.
window washer. Like, this is not that, guys. This
Right.
is not, the owner. I'm sure the owner goes through training so that they understand how to use the equipment, understand the process, and maybe very early on in the business, they're out there, with their sleeves rolled up, actually doing some cleaning. But that is certainly not the role of the owner long term in a business.
Yeah.
Need someone that can, assemble the team, instill that culture, that
Mhm.
we talk so much about and that you guys are so clearly passionate about. That can't it's why you guys franchised in the first place, I'm sure, are a big part of it. Like you need that local
Mhm.
leadership, local ownership. It's much harder to instill a strong culture if you're doing it from, hundreds or thousands of miles away. So Yeah, this is big business potential, guys. I mean, we talked about the commercial side of this.
Mhm.
That should get you salivating if you're out there, thinking about what type of business opportunities could make sense for you, and you have the goal of building a really big business. So,
Mhm.
um, Chris, anything that I didn't ask that you wished I would have, or anything that maybe we didn't cover today?
No, man, this was great. I just want to say that I'm grateful for the opportunity. I'm grateful for anyone who's listening that this resonates with, because the opportunity to grow and into kind of take over this industry is very real, and just anyone who gravitates towards it and asks me to be on a podcast or express interest in what we're doing, it's just total soul food. So I had a great time. Just made my day.
Awesome, man. Likewise, and love what you're doing. Love how you're doing it. I'm a huge fan, and we'll get this out. So hopefully, more and more people can watch what you're doing and jump on board. So,
Killer.
ladies and gentlemen, Chris Stonis taking Sparkle Squad to the moon.
Thank you.
Thank you, brother.